for a bag.
Just right here on the end of the couch?
Yes. Hand that to. This is their crystal. Here. That's a gift without stepping on it. That's funny. I'm not too
Are we ready? I hate to stop you guys from chatting. That's one of the great things about gathering. Get to connect. Well, that's true because there's refreshments. Thanks to Judith. Yes.
Will you please ask if the people on Zoom can hear?
Can the people on Zoom hear us? Okay.
Somebody give us a thumbs up.
We tested it prior, but just to make sure.
Oh,
there's a thumb
great,
up.
great, great.
Good,
Thank
good,
you,
good,
Heather.
good.
That's
All
great.
right. So Judith McConkey is our host tonight. Her husband is off gallivanting at the symphony. So
It's his 80th birthday.
sweet.
A granddaughter invited him to go to the symphony with her, the violinist. So if you've not been here before, welcome to our home. This is our son's side. They have 4 daughters. This is DMZ. And that's our side. And then my mother-in-law at 92 lived downstairs. So we had 4 generations. Is that right?
Sweet.
4? Yes. And then our daughter lives down the driveway, so in the neighborhood it's referred to as the compound. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Great.
thank you so much.
I'm
We
gonna
appreciate
sit
you.
down here.
Okay, you sit. It's your home. You can sit anywhere you want. All right? Anyway, thank you for hosting. Again. Appreciate that. In case if this is your first time, it does move around every month. Sometimes we have at the same place every month, but Jane and my home is just down the street, but it's not big enough to host. I don't know if you're familiar with Faith Matters Foundation. They're the ones that provide the Zoom connection for us, so grateful to them too. And Jane, my good wife, partner, is taking care of the Zoom people. Thank you for doing that. Let's see. Appreciate all of you coming. I'm glad to see as many here. You know, January can be a hard month because people are thinking of other things. So I'm very grateful that you made the time. Or makes the people that are presenting feel kind of bad, and then we don't have any good conversation. So thank you for taking the time out of your lives to come and share. Very appreciative of Juan and Jen sitting right there. They're going to come here soon. They didn't want to come here any sooner than they had to. Appreciate them.
It is not like to meet people.
No, that's great. No, I appreciate that. So anyway, very grateful that they were willing to take time out of their very busy lives. They are busy. And so thank you for doing that. Their bios, if you didn't go online already on the website, you can read about that. We don't repeat that here. So anyway, it's worth reading about them. Did you have? I'm used to Josh asking questions, so I have this nervous tick. Which is good. That's one reason I love the guy. He's always got good questions. I wanted to begin with a favorite poem that Jane and I have loved for a number of years. A number of you probably know it. It's a Mary Oliver poem. Sometimes we start with music, started with meditation before, sometimes we start with a poem. And it seems appropriate for our discussion tonight and also for beginning the new year. Thoughts that you can think about, and kind of goes along with Jen's question that she gave me that was on the website that you guys could think about. How are ya? Good to see ya, Priya. So, here it goes. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? All right. No, I forgot to ask someone to give a prayer. Mike, are you comfortable in doing that?
Sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Our dearest Father in heaven, we're so grateful for the opportunity to be gathered together and to discuss and ask questions and share our thoughts and feelings of our souls. Grateful for a place where we can express ourselves freely and openly. We pray that Thy Spirit may be here with us to attend us and guide our conversation. We love Thee, we love our brothers and sisters, and pray that we might be of service to them and of service to Thee. And we say this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mike. It struck me as Mike started praying that after that poem, I should have just kind of paused, given a little moment for reflection. I'll try to do that better next time. So who's here for the first time? Got a few people? Okay, good. So I'd like to read these three intentions that we have. Intention that you will feel and help others feel that this is a welcoming community, wherever we are in our spiritual and intellectual journey. Intention to be curious means asking questions or sharing stories that are confusing or even painful or beautifully positive. We want to help hold space for it all. And the third one is life is short, so let's laugh a lot and not take this all too seriously. All right, you two, now you get to come up on the big red chairs just like the general authorities.
Only
No women.
a female gets to inhabit.
Yes,
So,
I like that. Yes.
You want to know something funny? I worked at the church office building for a moment, and while I was there as a prank, his name was Mel Tini, and they had an opening in one of the general authority spots, and I had asked permission if I could borrow one of the conference chairs and put in his office as a prayer.
I'll be scared him to death.
He walked in there and he's like, "How did this happen in here? We don't want any messages sent anyway." My name's Jen Whiting, and I grew up in Branson, Missouri. Do you guys know where that is? Anyone?
yeah,
Branson's kind of famous.
very
It-
famous.
Among a certain group of people, it is.
Well, this guy's,
My college was paid by Branson.
his dad's a tour guide, and he takes tours there every year. Lots of them.
Yeah.
It used to be dozens, now it's only
I know, but I think it was last year, right? They had like more than 1 million visitors.
Yeah, I think they were passing Disneyland.
Yeah, they were
or
passing Disneyland at certain times of year. Just during certain times of year. Not the whole year, just like certain times in the summer, their numbers were a little bit higher.
And Christmas is kind of a big deal there, too.
It is, it's beautiful there. It's icy.
I've not been there, but.
You have a friend. They can, Andy Williams lived down the street from me, just like 2 streets down. Anyway, I grew up in Branson, loved it, had a great time. It's called BYU, Idaho. That's just a quick thing on me, so you know where. I grew up in kind of the genre of life. So my childhood was a bubble of music. So basically. I'm going to introduce how I and Juan met, but before then, to kind of set the stage, I want I noticed in the bio it said that we were moving from Mill Creek. When we moved to Africa, it was actually from Texas. But I lived here in Mill Creek when I was single, so my life was here in Mill Creek for a little bit. And I'll play into that right now. So while I lived here in Mill Creek, I worked for the church for a little bit, and then after that, it was an internship. The internship ended, and I had this feeling like, don't find a job. And I was taking care of my little sister for a while. She was living with me. She was 19. And I don't know, at the first week after my job, ended my internship. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. I'm sure something will pop up. A month passed, and I still had this feeling, you don't need to get a job. And I was like, some of us cannot just live on universe due. Like, we need, like, money. And so I started applying to jobs like crazy. I was getting accepted to them. I was like, hey, you should hire me because I love doing what you want to do. And if I have to be a janitor, I will. So just hire me. And they're like, come on board. And then I called them, like, I can't come. Or I was visiting a friend's house. And while I was visiting her house, I got a call from one of the people I'd applied to. And I was like, yes, I would definitely like to work for you guys. And I got off the phone. She was sitting right next to me. She's like, but you know you're not supposed to. And I called them up, and I said, I'm sorry, I won't be able to come. Months later, there was a company that called me that I personally had never applied to. And they said, we would like to interview you to come in for this position. And it turned out a girl in my area had just applied for me. And they offered me more than I had ever asked for. They gave me insurance that all the other places weren't going to give me. It was a wonderful opportunity. In the end, it was going to be through that job that actually linked Juan and I together. That job ended, and that sinks into how Juan and I met. So when that job ended, I had a little package, a severance package, and I was still single. I was still here in Mill Creek, and I had always wanted a horse. What little girl does not want a horse? I mean, there are some. I wanted a horse, so I got my horse. I called a friend and said, hey, I'm going to get this horse. What do you think of it? And she said, if you get that horse, I have someone that will train it and take care of it for you if you keep it in Idaho. So I was like, yeah, sure. So I got my horse. I kept her in Idaho. I'd visit my horse like once a week. Loved it. And while I was visiting my horse, the horse trainer, Juan, walked in. And he comes over to talk to me. Now, during this time, this is very important to know, I was in love with someone else. In love with someone else who was dating someone else.
I'm gonna jump in here.
No. You told me I could go first.
Go ahead, I'm
You
gonna
can
jump
fix
in.
it in a minute. And so I had I had been dating this other guy. I tried to date this other guy for 2 years. He had told me that we thought we could get married, all that, and I hung on to that. And I got this feeling, like the job, if you date anyone, it can only be this boy. So I was like, okay, we're probably getting married. Like, that's the only reason I wouldn't be dating. In fact, there was a bishop who came up to me, and he's like, maybe you're a little stuck on this one guy. You could probably, broaden horizons. And I was like, okay, look, this is the revelation I've gotten, but I'll make you a deal. You give me a blessing, and if it says something different, I'll date people. He said, okay. So he gave me a blessing, and in the blessing it said, things will be resolved between you and this boy, and you guys will figure things out. And the bishop's like, I'm not even involved. Just do your thing. So I hung on to this hope, was visiting my horse, not dating anybody, and anytime I did go on a date, it was like, that you shouldn't have done that. Visiting my horse. Juan comes over and is like, hi, I'm Juan. I'm like, that's good for you.
It was Pride and Prejudice. she was like the Darcy, and I was.
That's good. He also looked like he was 16, okay? And I graduated from college 6 years before. So anyway, we were sitting at church the next day, and I saw him, and I was like, I wish I could date him. And I would, if he wasn't a child. And then we moved on, and I never saw him. I didn't see him after that, and I went back to my life, and I got this email later, and it said, hey, I just got this job at Ag Reserves, which is where I had worked the previous company before. Could you help me? I'm doing blah, 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 blah. My name's Juan. I I'm like, oh, this little Mexican boy wants some help. I can definitely help him. You know, I know everybody in the company. I know the president. I know the vice president. Whatever he needs, I can help him. And I looked him up and I was like, that is not a little Mexican boy. And he's slightly cute. But I'm like, that's slightly cute. During this time, the boy that I've been in love with got engaged to this other girl. And I kid you not, the day he got engaged, I got this feeling, it's time for you to start dating. Juan had written me before then, but again, I'm thinking Mexican boy. And I went over and I wrote, and I was like, hey, I'm going to UVU's thing in Southern California, kind of close to your farm. Would you want to go on a date with me to this event? This is about 2 weeks after this boy got engaged to this girl. Also,
how old is Juan at this time?
he's not 16.
16.
17, 18.
I'm pushing 17 at this point.
Are you
I'm
serious?
just a foreman at a farm. No, I wasn't 17. I was 20,
You're
24. I was a grown up man.
He was a grown man. Alright, so Caleb, that was the other boy. Caleb, you're on line high. So Caleb got engaged to this other girl. My mom came in that same day. It was Christmas. She came in, she's like, I just had this impression to tell you, if you will go to the Lord and ask him to show you the person to marry, that he will show you. And I'm like, and you should marry him. And I'm like, I'm still kind of cute. I could catch a guy that is kind of cute, maybe, that I don't have to I'm not that desperate. I'm not dating anyone. But I did. I went to the Lord and I said, look, if you really have a person you want me to marry, if you'll show him to me, if I have to go blind first, I understand.
That does sound a little desperate.
I was just trying to be a good following person of where my life's supposed to go. Because I'm going to tell you the truth. Up to this point, every time I follow the Lord, it's working out. So if I have to go blind, I understand. We'll be fine. But I would like to be attracted to my husband. Anyway, I invited Juan to go to this date, and we were engaged at the end of the date. And that's it. So
There you are. Now here you are.
I want to hear his side of the story.
Yeah,
it was a good date.
It was a good day.
It was a good date. Maybe I'll pause. Go ahead and fill in your side. So I thought.
Now you can speak, husband.
Yeah, well, so after the Darcy moment, I mean, I didn't know what exactly to expect. I mean, we'd been chatting on LinkedIn, and I had been looking at, because she'd worked with Ag Reserves, I was just looking to get ahead in life and wanted to be farming with the big Ag Reserves. So, so I was contacting her, and we didn't get to meet. My dad was had gotten really sick. We didn't find out until later that he had pancreatic cancer, but so we didn't get to meet over the Christmas break. But when she came out, I drove out, and she was very out there, and it felt like, hey, we've known each other for a long time. I mean, I remember when we first met, we just gave each other a big hug, and then she started telling me where to go, and I didn't realize that I signed up for work. No, hold on. I didn't realize that I signed up for work, and this is very telling of our marriage. But if I'm not looking busy, then I get a job. And it's funny because and this happened on the date, that she's like, can you go get this snack? And it's the middle of, so this is President Holland, president of UVU at the time, Elder Holland's son. He had this guy that was sculpting Lincoln's profile. Yeah, his bust. So, and the whole time he's doing that, he's talking about Abraham Lincoln and all the history, because that was what he'd done his research on. And she's asking me to go get these little burgers, like these little mini burgers, sliders, yeah. And she's like, can you go in there? So I'm like thinking, okay, I've got to do like some special ops like thing to get over here and grab these little mini burgers. And I grabbed them, and I'm like, man, I can't believe she's having me do this in the middle of like, while everyone's watching, I'm the kind of this like loner guy that's like, oh, let's get some food in the middle of the scene. So I'm just walking over there, and I grab it and I get it to her, and she takes a bite and she's like, whoa, and spits it out, and I'm like, I just got this to you. Anyway, it was love, and I think that from there we went on several dates, but we stayed with her family for a bit, and I think that I had a similar experience that she had, where I had gone to my dad the time like before going out. I was supposed to go to New Zealand, and our family was just not in a good place. I had been, a lot of the money that I was trying to make, I had 3 or 4 jobs, and was waking up at 4 in the morning working on a ranch, and then at the same time was working for the school, and I was, trying to make it by, and at the same time sending money home, trying to keep the car and keep the house, and
Your parents.
Yeah. So, and I had the year before, I had actually been going through the Marine Corps. I was planning on being a Marine officer, and I'd always felt like that was a path that I was supposed to take. And by the end of it, I just got this feeling I'm not supposed to be here, and I got to be home. And my dad was super sick at that point, but yeah, it was. I kind of lost my train of thought. What was I talking about there?
Your dad told you that you.
Oh, so yeah, my dad was sick, and at the time, and I had applied for the school in New Zealand, but all my money had run out, and so I was like, well, I can't be in New Zealand like trying to be an extra for The Hobbit or something while I'm trying to like make it by in an ag school. So I just said, well, I think I'll just do an internship, and luckily I got accepted to be an intern over in California with the Church Farms, and but right before I left, my dad he stopped me right before I went. He said, I think you're going to find your wife there. And I was like, okay, Dad. And you got to know, this is Wasco, California. There are no girls. And I was in a Latin ward. It was like full on. It was not. Yeah, there was no girls around. It was me and a bunch of. It was me and
Your farmhands.
and my farmhands. That's what we were doing. Yeah, we were just out there farming, and so when she reached out and she came out, I was like, maybe this could be something.
Thanks,
So
Josh.
anyway, by the end of the day, we went to the temple.
Oh, good. I
Of
want to
all
tell the story.
places,
Can I tell
yeah.
the story? Well, I'll tell the part. You tell inside the temple, and I'll tell the outside. No, I'll tell them the first part, and I'll tell the middle
This
part.
story's gonna go on. And
Yeah.
No.
But we want to get to the
We'll
Africa
get
part.
there. We'll get
we
there.
gotta get to Africa at some point.
It's a small thing, and we'll jump to Africa. We'll just go straight to Africa, okay? So we're in the temple. Have a spirit, and I all of a sudden realize I like him, and I think I can marry him. And so I have like this checklist in my mind. And at first it's like holding hands, and then cuddling, and then a kiss, right? I just have this like little checklist. That's all I need. Anyway, so the whole time he comes over, he finds me after the temple, he holds my hand, I'm like, check, right? So the cluster, and we're sitting next together there, and we kind of like touch our arms, and like, check. I'm like, good, all my checklist is going forward, right? And then he just gets like super funny. I'm not even doing anything super funny. We go outside, we go on this little walk, and he stands in front of me, he's like, Jen, where do you see this going? And I put my nose right next to him, and it's like, forward. Right? No, it didn't happen. That's what happened at the
I'm
temple.
not a floozy. So anyway, so we later on we did kiss. But yeah.
And then we got engaged. We got
Sealed
engaged
the
next week, so it's not a big deal. Alright, so jumping forward, we go to Africa. But the reason why I told you all those little things, and you might be like, oh, that's a fun little cute story. No, the reason I'm telling you those things is because there's a pattern. The pattern is following the feelings that we get, even if it's not clear on why or how, or even if it's scary or if it's a big jump. And for me, I just shared 2 stories. I shared the job story, and I shared finding my husband and marrying him and dating that guy for I didn't know until I met Juan. But when we went to Africa, I had told Juan previous to going to Africa, I was like, I'm not going to Africa unless our youngest child is 5. I've had my experience in the United States, and then we go. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, what about this opportunity that I got invited to? And I was like, and I prayed about it, and I felt really good about him interviewing. And I'm like, maybe he just needs to hone interview. So I was like, yeah, go ahead for your interview. What was with it was with Howard Buffett, and I was like, it's like a higher interview person, so go hone those interview skills, and it'll be great. So he left. They came back, and he's like, well, they liked me. So, and I was like, oh.
She wasn't expecting
that. My kid's not 5.
It's okay. He's like, well, how do you feel about Rwanda? And I was like, oh, okay.
Very peaceful place. Right?
Yeah, let's do it. And we went. We moved, you guys. We moved a month after this conversation. This wasn't like.
And were the twins formed by then?
Oh no, I had one child. One child that was 1.
Oh.
He's not 5. I didn't have my life in the States.
Mm-hmm.
He was 1.
So you hadn't been married that long
No.
when this happened.
Yeah, a year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a little over a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to put anything in there?
No, so when I met him, I spoke Swahili, and then
And why did you speak well?
So I had served my mission in Kenya.
Okay.
And it's interesting because, and like she's saying, like the patterns, I have different patterns in my life than she does, which is like on a spiritual level. Like I've always been drawn to agriculture, and both my dad and my grandpa were hesitant to push me in that direction. And I think not most, but there's a lot of agricultural families that are like, go get an education, get out of here, and go do something with your life. And I just always.
So they were farmers too, and they were.
My dad was a farmer. My grandpa, they were farmers, and we grew up in a compound. We called it the Whiting compound as well. It's very similar to this, where we had my grandma and grandpa lived next door, so across the field. And my aunts and uncles lived next door, and then I had my other aunt and uncle that lived next door, and there were like probably 20 cousins. It was like a reunion every day. we didn't need reunions; it just happened. So, but when I went to Howard Buffett, it was interesting because I spent a lot of time in the bush when I was in Kenya because my mission president was a farmer, and he's like, well, you're a farmer, you'll be okay. And just kind of left me there for a year. And so I picked up on the languages. There was Kikamba and then Swahili as well. And I thought, well, when am I ever going to use this? Well, surprise, I mean, we still use it here with the refugee ward. That wasn't here before, but when Howard Buffett called, he was like, I'm looking for a farmer that speaks Swahili. And,
How often is that?
and I was like, well, I'm the only one. Yes. So that's how that conversation really went. It was really not a long conversation. He's like, well, that's really bizarre, but we need you. So I was going to be working out in the war-torn parts of Congo, where a lot of our refugees come from, and we were going to be addressing food security, which to me was what I had been in Kenya. In my life, I've been, the pattern in my life is that I've always been around conflict, and agriculture has kind of been at the core, where people have been hungry, and that has led to the conflict. And I've been blessed, and have been promised that I'd be blessed to be in places where I could help restore and bring back peace. And so, as soon as he said that that's what I was going to do, I was like, well, this is my mission. My mission is food. My mission is helping people, address conflict through food.
And it just so happens I speak Swahili.
And I just so happen to speak Swahili. And I'd also just gone through the Marine Corps, like 2 years before, so I felt like this, even though if I stayed with the Marine Corps, the Marine Corps would have told me where to go, obviously, and it probably wouldn't have been Africa, but because I'd been able to go through that and come back and passed away at that point, but that had been what drew me back home. It really opened a lot of doors. So a lot of my failures, and that's been a pattern in my life as well, which I'm not looking forward to other failures, but they kind of led me, and the failure of not getting New Zealand led me to my wife, and so failure's kind of been the stepping stone for me. As I'm talking about this, you can keep going on.
Well, so as we're talking about patterns, one of the patterns for me is that there's always a little hint at something that's going to come up later. While I lived here in Mill Creek, I had met, I don't know if you guys, anyone here knows the Englands.
Scott and Lori, right?
Yeah, Scott and Lori, and I became friends with their daughter and got to know her. Well, when we came back and we visited the Swahili ward and they were there, to me it's a kind of like a hint, like, hey, right place, right time. And those are evident throughout my life as I come through. In fact, when we first got married, our very first Sunday back here, I knew one that was in love with Africa and Africans, and we visited the Swahili ward. And that was our first thing. And to me, the fact that it came full circle, more than a decade later, is kind of something that is a pattern indicator in our life. Speaking of patterns, while we're in Rwanda, there were times we were out there, and I'm like, I'm not sure if this is the right time and right place. The very first night we were there, people were up until like 2 a.m. singing. It was hot. There was no air conditioning, no mosquitoes. And I was like, I thought I could do this. It was only supposed to be a year. You guys, it was supposed to be 1 year. It turned out to be 6. So I was wondering, right place, right time. During that time, there was a sister missionary that got called to be in our ward. And while she was visiting, Juan thought her name sounded familiar. And we invited her over, and it turned out that her family had been converted to the gospel through the missionary efforts of Juan's grandpa in another area of Africa.
Crazy.
And she knew that because I'm the only grandchild that's named after my grandpa.
That's
I mean, a lot of you are looking at me like, you don't look like a Juan. And you're wrong, you're dead wrong. But yeah, so I was named after my grandpa. I'm not the darkest one in my family. So, but yeah, it was definitely a very, it was a tender mercy for us. And we've had those. And it's been interesting coming back, seeing those moments, because it's kind of, you have those questions like, am I on the right path? And then people, it's often people that show up and you're like, you're supposed to be here at right now, and it's time, and it's also
What brought you back to Salt Lake and leaving Rwanda?
That's a big part of the story.
I think that's a good, that's
Yeah.
a kind of a good lead in, because what really led us back, so I had been with the Howard Buffett Foundation for 3 years, and I loved it. I loved working with the government. I was working with the people. I was out there starting seed companies. I was doing plant breeding. I was even trying to do my PhD at the same time in plant breeding and working with coffee. I didn't drink it, but I loved it. I love coffee plants. So they're so cool, and I was able to just like, I was constantly learning, and there was huge projects. Howard Buffett was putting $500 million into the country, and so it was just all exciting. And then it was almost overnight that they said, well, hey, look, we're going to stop your role in this. And I was like, whoa. And at that point,
How many years had you been there when that
3
happened?
years. 3 years.
So I'll pick up from right
Yeah,
there.
let's
So during that time, right before then, there was a girl that I had kept passing her on the street. This was a bit before then. I kept passing her on the street, and she was always hungry. And the first time I got kind of mad because I have everyone soliciting something from me, right? And finally I was like, look, you want to ask me for something and not rise my temper, right? Just ask me for food. If you ask me for food, I will find a way to get food to you, no matter where you are. And I just kept passing her, and then eventually I just had her take me to her house so I could just start delivering food. And I learned that they were basically homeless, and they had just found like this piece of tin to live under. And so I worked with people around me. I was like, okay, well, how about I just foster all of you, and you will all just come and live with me. And your family part can live in like the garden house outside, and the little girl, because she was having the parenting issues, right, involve a lot of eating. You will live with me, and I will teach your mom how to parent, and we will just figure it out. So I was fostering her, And then this other teenager saw this, and she's like, hey, do you want to foster me too? And I was like, you're fine. You're fine. And Juan's like, well, maybe we should pray about it. And we prayed about it, and we felt really good about fostering her. And I was like, sure. the team, just come on
She
in.
wasn't like that with all the dogs. We had chickens. I would leave for a bit, and I'd come back, and there were other creatures and people, and I was like, this is turning into a little community. I was not planning on this. By year 2, that's when all this started happening, and I was like, so when they pulled the plug on us, I was like, okay, I was ready to go, and now my wife has created a little community. She's the mayor, and so it's I'm not sure that we can do that. And I told her about options, and we started to look and say, well, I could start a farm management company. I'd been thinking about it, and
we've been saving for a house, so when we returned, we could have a house, and we could start off on the right foot. And he said, well, how would you feel about using all of that?
How would you feel about not having it? Yeah, and she was like, oh yeah. How'd you feel about buying a tractor? The first thing we got was this ridiculous mini Turkish tractor. So think of like a rototiller with a trailer on the back, but it's a little bit bigger than a rototiller. But you take
You
that,
stand on it?
you stand on it. You've probably seen them, but they're scary.
Yeah.
I drove that all the
Segway.
way through Kigali, like the town, to get to our farm. Yeah, that was the beginning. But we were excited. We called it Pride Farms, and it started. You know, I mean, there was a lot of excitement behind it, and I was blessed to get an investor.
And you know, it sounds really easy when you talk about it. It
Oh,
was not
gosh,
easy.
this was-
It wasn't easy, okay? We were like
We
figuring
went a
out
year without any
without an income.
without an income or anything,
And we were like on our very last moment, and someone called and he's like, I'm interested in working with you. Like it was the last moment, and that's the pattern of my life. My pattern of my life is at the very last moment, that's when everything works. That job thing, I was like, look, I'm gonna have to go live on the street. And it was like the very last moment it came. And that's how it happened with one's investor.
Yeah, and that came up, and we and you know, I was super excited, but then that we had at one point we had about 10 farms that we were running across the country, and we were doing every kind of vegetable you can imagine. We were feeding like the Marriott, all the major restaurants. We were getting and we were bringing in new equipment that they'd never seen before. So we're bringing in combine harvesters and showing, and so I was thinking, hey, we're on the right trajectory here, and we were shipping green beans to France, habaneros to Holland, and we hit a point where we decided to go completely organic, and that changed a lot for me spiritually, because I had grown up doing conventional, where it's you till and you kill, right? You use pesticides, you're using, and anything you got a problem, you kill it. You got problems with mice, you kill them. You got problems with snakes, you kill them. And I remember becoming like full on. I kind of got hippie. So I
No, he did. He had a beard, like and long hair. He was very in touch.
I was very in touch. And I was just, and I think at that point we were starting to go in the right direction. And I felt like we were healing the soil, and it's like kind of like getting off drugs when it comes to the soil. But if you do it really quick, you watch everything die, and we lost a lot. But we also learned a lot, and I learned specifically my spiritual path has been through farming since I was little, where I talked to God, where I felt God in my life was on the farm. It was with livestock. I was on the tractor. Some of the most spiritual moments for me. And we hit a point where we had, everything was like starting to come together, and we were starting to get some higher yields. And COVID hit. And overnight, all the flights ended like that.
And you were shipping your food internationally.
I was shipping my food internationally, so all of a sudden there's no market, and we had people that were kind of going hungry, and we had people asking me for free green beans, and I'm like, well, what about my family? You know, and I started thinking like I have, due to like how I grew up, I had this survival mindset a little bit at times, a scarcity mindset, and this really shook me. And there were, I mean, to say U.S. The U.S. was kind of heavy-handed. You take a dictator in Rwanda, and it was, I mean, he closed everything down.
Disobedience does not cross your mind.
No.
You're going to be in Rwanda.
No.
It's just like, this is how it is.
No, they just closed it down, and if you show your nose with the mask, I mean, it's one thing to, you were wearing a mask, but if you showed your nose, it was like...
The police will take you away.
Yeah.
And they take you to re-educate you on how to wear your mask.
For re-education.
Not kidding.
Mask
It sounds
re-education.
funny, but it wasn't.
It wasn't.
That's funny.
No. But at that, I think that we had left to Congo, or to the border of Congo, right before COVID.
Yeah.
We just felt like we were kind of at a point where
No, Glenn thought you thought you were getting a job out there.
I had
and we felt really good about
we
moving there.
we were going to have a side job so that I could take care of things and not pull from the farm. And we went out there without having a clear, like it felt good. They said that they were going to do it, but as soon as we got there, they're like, psych, pulled the rug out from under our feet, and we stayed there. And I would drive. This is right by Virunga and the volcano out near Goma, and we did that for almost a year.
Did you take your whole community too?
No,
foster
so by this time, the teenager had grown up and she had finished high school, and she did something else for a year, and then the other girl, we had an incident. We had to take a break.
We had our money.
Okay, so what happened?
Snatched.
Yeah, it was she'd emptied the bank account while we didn't have an income.
When we were like completely done, it was like
Two times.
and 2000 at that time didn't. I mean, now I look back and I'm like it's 2000, but then it was like, first of all, I'm in Rwanda, and I, as a provider for my family, I felt completely insecure. I was like, how are we going to get back home, or is this going to have to be my home? And what are we gonna eat? How are we gonna do this? We didn't have a vehicle for a while.
But to be fair, her ability to understand what she did was limited,
Yeah.
right? Because like she sees an ATM as like, oh, you just go get money from this box,
Free-
not like
Free money.
Yeah.
how did it get in the box, right? So we were frustrated. It was more just like, we just can't do this continuously. Like we just can't do it all. So that's. And,
Yeah.
and she'll come back. She'll come back in the story. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like
No.
lessons that we learned while we were in Africa. Going back to that. So walking by faith. That's mostly what you've been hearing when we're sharing this story. It's us walking by faith. When we landed in Rwanda, there was actually a family there, not an LDS family, just a family that I had just been asking questions to. And last minute they heard that we didn't know where we were going to live, that we were just going to land and just figure it out. And they said, why don't you stay with us? We have friends coming in that same day that you're coming in, so just stay at this other place, that terrible experience. And then as soon as they leave, come be with us. And we stayed with them for about a week or two until we found our place. But living with them, I saw how wonderful life in Rwanda could be. So I'm grateful we had that terrible experience, because then I'm like, well, it's just up from there. I can definitely do that. And then there was fostering the girls. It was awesome. And we got very involved with the church. I taught institute and seminary.
Did
Teaching.
you have 3 children by then?
I still had one. Well, it felt like I had 2 children. I had a girl.
Yeah, because you were
I-
fostering these other
I had my one, and
Oh,
he
one.
was growing up, and then I had my second during institute and seminary. And I didn't look when I was thinking like really chill. I'm more of a laid back person, right? So I'm thinking like midday we could have seminary. The kids were like, no, we're in school from like 7 a.m. to like 7 p.m. So if we want to do seminary, we're gonna have to be early morning seminary. I'm like, oh, okay, well, how we can do it like once a week. We heard in the States they do it every day, and I'm like, or we can do it every day. Do it every day. Do it at my house though, okay? And I'm like, okay, just so you know, if we come to your house, it means we have to leave our house at 4:30 because we have to walk there. and they would walk to my house, and then they would walk to school.
And they wanted to do that.
And they wanted to do it. And I went to church leadership and I was like, is there a way we can give them a fund just so they could get a bus? And it's hard because I know here in the States, we do whatever we can to get our youth places, right? Do a roundup, we'll do buses, we'll do whatever it takes to get them somewhere. And they just said no.
Mm-hmm.
Said no, they're going to have to figure it out. And I was like very disappointed and frustrated. But they came. These kids still came. And when we did Institute, they came. And
When we did mission prep, they came too.
all of my seminary students that were regular students, all of them went on missions. And all of them are pushing forward with their lives right now. And I don't know if that's necessarily, it's not just because of religion, but I believe it's because they have the faith to do what they need to do.
Mm.
And I think that's the thing. That was a lesson I learned, that if you're willing to do it, then God will be with you. Another lesson I learned was how to let go. And Juan had to remind me of this lesson when we came back to the States, because here in the States, especially in this kind of community, I don't live that far, so I can say this community because I'm here, I know. You know what, I feel like everything we do, we're judged. We're judged from what car you're driving, what school your kids are going to. Do you know what people, they don't love this. They love when they say, oh, what school do your kids go to? And I'm like, oh, we homeschool. And they're like, oh. Okay. Or I get a pep talk of like, you know, you'd be more integrated if you were part PTA and that involves your kids going to school. I'm like, yes, you're right. And it was hard because, you know, I want to be on church on time. And I know every mother out there does, right? And one day I was pulling the kids and somebody was screaming, and the person was crying, and I'm like, get in the car. It's not that hard. I'll take your shoes. And Juan just paused and, you know what, in Africa, in Rwanda, nobody cares what time church. You come, you came. You can take that off for the day. After the last 2 minutes, or maybe half hour after, you came, right? And Juan's like, Jen, if it is not going to be enjoyable, we are not going to do it. And that shifted because that was something we did learn in Rwanda. Do you know what? In Rwanda, and I don't know what it would have been like if I had raised Jack here, but there, I made it fun for him. I brought a little play mat in Sacrament. I just opened that play mat in the front. I sat in the front because that's where the most space was for my play mat. And I would just set it up there. And people would visit from the States, and neighbors would visit. Here we are. If you'd like to join us in our picnic with our homeless friends, yes, then you can be here. And I mentioned in a talk I gave at church at my refugee ward that my daughter, for 3 years, guys, 3 years, she insisted on wearing a swimsuit and a cat's tail to church. Okay, and we did have visitors that would come, and I would be like, yes, this is us. This is us. And it's fine, and you're going to be fine, and I'm going to be fine. But those are some of the lessons I learned. And when we came back, it was hard because I wanted to integrate so much into the culture here. I wanted to belong. Who doesn't want to belong? But what became the question in our mind is, what's more important, belonging or doing what is right? And sometimes doing what is right looks a little bit different than maybe what everyone is doing. And that can be kind of hard. So like accepting that my child wants to look a little bit different. You know what, there have been times where, fortunately, I enjoy wearing pants more to church. But when my daughter wanted to wear pants, I was just like, what are all the other kids been saying? Definitely all the parents are going to be like, oh, that's from their mom.
I wear pants too. So. I do wear a kilt every once in a while.
It's true, PC. Yeah.
So you might get it from me.
That's right. But that was the lesson that I had to kind of reach back from Rwanda and be like, you know what? It doesn't matter. It matters that I hear my daughter. It matters that she feels like she's wanted to be there, not because of how she dressed, but because she's wanted to be there. And how exciting is it that she wants to find a way that she can come and be comfortable with whatever she's wearing. And that's the one that would do the cat tail and the swimsuit. The babies, because you asked about my twins. You asked about me
I'm
2
just
times.
waiting.
They're coming right now. I'm going to tell you about them right now, and then I'll give some time to Juan, because I know he has feelings and excitement about babies. So we were living in Congo, or near Congo, on the border of Congo, And Juan had given me this blessing. And in this blessing, he like started like stuttering or like having like kind of a hard time. He's like, and I was just like, okay, just finish it off, right? Just be done. He's like, and he started talking about twins, that we were gonna have twins. And no, this is right before we go to Congo. That we're gonna have twins.
Were you pregnant at that point?
No, I was not pregnant. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna have twins. Interesting. And he's like, I don't know if that was inspired. Like, I'm not
If
sure
that was a curse.
right. No, yeah, it was at some point. And then, so every time we get pregnant, I'm thinking, oh, this is them. And I go to the doctor and I'm like, somebody's see one or two. And she's like, that's a really weird question to ask. And the first time I asked, it was one. And then we came back to the States, and as we were flying back, I had this miscarriage. And I was like, well, I thought we were having twins. And then COVID hit. And Juan, so this is the experience of COVID. Everyone here, you were all quarantined in your homes and as a little family. Not me and Juan. Juan was leaving every Sunday night and living out on the farms in a tent. And then he'd come back on Saturday. So we were doing that for several months. And it was during that time that I got pregnant with their twins. And I had this feeling when we got pregnant with them that we were going to have them in Rwanda, which I would be totally against. Because one, I don't want to be in an African country. I have a background of being a paramedic. And I'm like, I don't want any of that. Like, I need a hospital and I need medicine. I need like all the comforts. And I don't want to die. Like all those things. On top of that, I was like, okay, well, if I have the babies here in Rwanda, then I probably can't get an epidural because all their epidurals go into surgery. So I'm going to have to learn how to have a baby without having an epidural in an African country. And I started freaking out and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to become very hippie, right? And find out how all those other... Juan's whole family, like all of his cousins had their babies at home and I the whole time have been judging them, right? And like, how you guys are so bizarre. And here I am, being forced to join them. So I'm like learning like how to get birth and all these things, and I kid you not, I kept getting like little guidance on like things I need to think about and things I need to experience in my life. And I'm like, okay, well that's weird. Well, I do it. I do all these little things in my mind, and somewhere near the end, when I say the end, like the last half of pregnancy, Juan's like, well, where do you want to have the babies? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll find a midwife group or a hospital. I had this feeling. What was like, it's not a feeling. It was more of like a pop thought. You're gonna have them at home, and I'm like, I think we're gonna have them at home. And everyone's like, oh, well that's interesting and fun. And I was like, that's weird, because the only way you can have them at home, because it's illegal to do that in Rwanda, is if they come really fast. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not sure. And I was interviewing doctors, going to hospitals and everything, and I still felt like we're having a home. And so I was like, all right, well, here's our plan that we're gonna tell everyone, and here's our plan if it's not. And one day I was sleeping and I thought my daughter who was sleeping next to me kicked me because I felt like a punch, and I was like, oh, and then like everything was wet. So I'm like, oh, I wet. So I was like, I'm gonna go take a shower. So I went and took a shower and I realized, no, we're having them now. I called Juan, he came over, and like I said, I was a paramedic, so I was like, I realized that fathers sometimes get a little excited and nervous, and
So she had to tell me how to breathe. Well, and I had the night before, I'm like, it was literally the night before that I was looking at how to help birth a baby. I mean, I've done it with calves. And I'm like, am I going to yank the legs? Anyway, so I did watch that. I was pretty well trained at that point. And I was breathing. And she's asking me to put her song on because I was going to put her in the zone, and I couldn't find her song, so she grabbed it from me and it's like, let me do this. Why don't I just do the whole thing? No, you don't have to be so rude. I didn't say that. At that point, I'm just like, keep my mouth shut. I'm like, I'm not. Just breathe. Just breathe.
Remember how I told you little steps of the way, God gives me little hints, says I'm on the right track, right? Previous to that, I had been renting this house, and by this time, we had moved back to Kigali. But when we were living on the border of Congo, our landlord's sister was managing the property, and she was visiting us, and we were just talking about kids, and she's like, when I had my babies, it was painless. And I'm like, no, that does not happen. And
She was from Iran.
Yeah,
right?
she was from the Middle East.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's impossible. She's like, actually, my whole family has had it that way. And I was like, I don't know who's lying to you, but that's not how it is. Anyway, so I go through that whole like moment of where I'm learning about how to work with my body and how things work. And our second baby came out, and immediately my very first thought was, I could do that again. And really, it was trusting the Lord. Right before then, I have a sister-in-law who had twins the month before me. And she called me, and I was going to say this in my earlier part. My family here is not so thrilled that I went to Africa. And when they found out I was going to have babies in Africa, they basically thought I signed my death certificate. They're like, how would you do that? Why would you do that? All those things. And really, it's going back to, if I feel like I'm supposed to do it, I should probably do it. And it doesn't matter what other people think or feel. And it doesn't matter how crazy it sounds. If it's what I feel like I need to do, then I probably should do it. And I ended up telling, her name's Joanna, I ended up telling Joanna, I was like, I love that you care about me, but this is how I feel like, and if I die, then at least I died doing what I felt like I was supposed to be doing.
Oh my goodness.
And so I think if you live your life like that, then you live with peace. But if you live your life against that, then you're consistently looking for that peace. But the babies came, and they lived.
And you lived.
And I'm an honorary midwife, so
Yes.
And one lived.
I will say that is probably the coolest experience I've had in my life. I don't think there's anything that will ever compare to that. To be able to be a father and a
And you did
midwife
it
And help
full on your
deliver.
legs.
and deliver those babies. And there was a lot of trust because twins are always a high risk. And we didn't have any visual, like whether tubes were going to
Wait,
be,
no, how was
we
anything
didn't
was
know
gonna work?
what was going to happen, and it just happened. After 10 minutes apart,
Yeah.
and I caught one, and
And then I held
barely
the
caught
other.
the other, and she held on to one, and I got the other, and it was an amazing experience. I think what I was going to say with this, just a couple lessons that I've learned. Number one, I mean, we've seen that a lot of things come full circle. The patterns that we find in our lives, they're important, and we're creatures of story, and part of that story is the patterns. And sometimes we just discount patterns and think that, well, this isn't really anything. But I think that I love hearing people's stories because they have different patterns in their lives. There was a point where we were starting to feel like it was time to come back to Salt Lake, or not Salt Lake, but to come back to Utah. My mom had come out for the babies, and she came out and said, like a matriarch, she said, look, I feel like it's going to be like the
She said that after we got back, didn't she?
no, she
Did
said
she
it while
tell you
we were
that?
there.
Oh, I didn't know.
She
She
said
told
like,
me that.
I don't know if she said that to my aunt.
Yes, to your aunt.
She didn't tell us because she
So look,
didn't want to
let me
offend
tell the
us.
other story, and then
Yeah,
I'll.
okay, go ahead.
Okay, so we're gonna come back to the U.S. Let me see, because I was
We're
gonna.
running out of time.
Okay, I'll hurry. All right, so coming back. I was going to the store. Juan was sure that we were gonna come back sometime. I'm like, yeah, sometime in the future. I'm happy here in Rwanda. And I was visiting a store, and the police came in and did a raid, and they found a person that wasn't wearing their mask appropriate and took her off in a bus.
The nose was showing.
Yes. So they were giving, if somebody could call in and just say, hey, someone's on my street with that, and they could just take them away. It was like a little bit Nazi-ish, right? And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I just came home and I was like, you know that visit we're taking in like a week? Let's just move back. And he's like, well, where would we live? And I was like, your mom's. You know what? All of her kids have moved out, and she's got some spare rooms, and I think she'll be okay. So we call her up, and she's like, yeah, I'm ready for you. Unbeknownst to us, she had talked to her sister-in-law and said, I have this feeling Jen and Juan are going to come back from Rwanda, like the children of Israel leaving Egypt, and they're going to need a place to stay. So she was ready. She was ready for us to come. And we stayed with her, and while we were there, they just so happened to decide to buy a house in Layton. They were living in Arizona, and then they needed, her husband was going to retire and live there, and they were going to have tenants, but they couldn't have tenants unless they were living there, and then he decided not to retire, so they had us go out and live there for a while he was finishing up and deciding to retire. And then when that time finished, they were about to move up to Layton, and Juan said, Jen, I just feel like you know where we're supposed to go. And I'm like, okay, well, I've always liked Mill Creek. So we're driving around Mill Creek, And previous to that, I've been thinking about a family that I knew in Mill Creek, a boy that I had dated while I was in Mill Creek. And I kept thinking about his family's home. And we were driving on Wasatch Boulevard, and we were coming down on 33rd. And he's like, "Are we going the right way?" And I'm like, "We're not going by his house because no. Like, what am I going to do if I see them? I haven't seen them since we did not work out." He's like, "Well, where should we go?" I'm like, "Look, we're just gonna drive on this street. We're not gonna do anything on this street. We're just gonna drive, and then we're gonna leave. We're gonna drive and leave." So we go up, walk up Wasatch, go by Eastwood. We're driving around there, and we see his parents' house, this other guy's house, as their parents' house, and we're like, "Okay, well, there's the house. Now we can leave." He's like, "Well, do you want to go knock on the door?" And I'm like, "No, no, I don't want to knock on the door." And Grace be it, somebody came out of the house right next to them. And she came out, and Juan's like, "Hey, do you know of any homes to rent around here?" And she points to 2 doors down that doesn't have a sign or anything. And she says, "That house right there is for rent." So we go there, and we get the landlords to come. The landlords come. Well, it so happens the landlord's husband had already been in contact with Juan for some work.
He's a farmer.
Oh, crazy.
In Mill Creek, I think he's the only one. Now there's 2. So we were renting, and we were the 2 farmers, so kind of worked out.
So when Jay had asked me what I wanted for the title for this, to be learning, or what was it? I think it was like living by faith, right?
Yeah.
From Africa to Mill Creek,
Yeah.
living by faith. That's really what it is. It's really taking what we feel like we should be doing, and then doing it. And that's why I asked the question that I did before, that what is something you feel like you should be doing, and what's stopping you from doing it? And I think that when we have those questions in us, then we can say, well, is it something I can actually do now? And why not? And I think that's
That's
good.
good. I want to hear one. You gave your talk at the branch. I mean, before you came here, after or in between COVID, you had a really rough spot. This when you were camping out for a week on the farm.
Yeah.
And you talked about rains, torrential rains.
Yeah.
And
So we'd hit a point where some of the farms were not doing very well, and it was like digging the Panama Canal. We were trying to get this water out of the fields. It was just like a swamp, and we hadn't gotten it like that. We didn't realize, and the owner didn't tell us, but every year when the rains would come, they would stay due to the way the soil was. It wouldn't infiltrate.
Yeah.
And
Too much clay, maybe. Huh?
Yeah, and at that point, I was just out there. It was during COVID, so I was out in my tent, kind of just with my guitar and with the cows constantly by me, just mooing. And I hit like a really low point, and I just was trying to figure out why is everything falling apart. And at that point, I got this feeling that I needed to go and go touch the soil and bless it, more or less. And I put my hands on the soil, and my workers watched as water just started pouring into the trenches, and there was a lot of shifts there. Number one, I think that I thought a lot about, and I think in the talk I brought up in the refugees that there's a lot of power in remembering our ancestors, and I had realized that one of the things that I've always felt a love for with agriculture is that it connects me to my ancestors. It goes back, I don't know how many generations, because once you go back 4 generations, I think we're all farmers. Right? There's a point where we're all like Abraham, like we can go back there. But there's something that I love and I know that there's people from all spectrums here of faith, and I say faith in a way that institutionalized faith. I think that when I think of faith, I connect very much with Abraham's kind of faith, where we're out there. We're roaming. we are with our cows, and hey, we might stop and talk about God as in form, because we're creatures of story, and that's how Christ taught. He would teach parables about the olive tree. He would talk about livestock and seeds, and I think that that's something that resonates with us as a human species. And I think that sometimes we try and bottle that up in a building, and Jen may not feel the same way. So I'm very different that way. I'm very much outdoors, like this. Put me out there, and I'll go talk to God. That's how I get answers. But I was going to point out one thing, because I had an experience like at this time with my hair like all grown out, and I was just COVID. I think a lot of people grew their hair out during COVID, but mine really grew out. It didn't stop. I was like, hey, this is okay.
You did the whole thing.
I did the whole. I went full on, and there was times that I'd go out in my robe, and the kids all, oh, that's Jesus. I had the goatee as well, and I'll show you guys some pictures. But at that point, I woke up one morning, and I was like, it was clear as day. I was like, I told Jen, and this was before when Jen knew that I'd gone off the Marine Corps. She's like, it's good that you weren't in the Marine Corps, because I would have never married you. Things that she said she's never going to do, like go to Africa or marry someone in the military, like she's got to be. She's very careful now about what she says she's never going to do, because I woke up and I said, Jen, I'm supposed to go into the military, and they're going to call me up, and I've been told that it's going to be a direct commission. And she's like, what the heck does that mean? So I had to explain what a commission is, and I was just blown away, and I started researching and trying to figure things out. There's nothing. There was no real program or anything. There's doctors, and I'm like, well, I could be a plant doctor and do this, like be a plant breeder. And anyway, I got a call about a month and a half later from a major in the Army. They were with it falls under the umbrella of Special Forces. It's Civil Affairs, where they go and then they develop relationships with locals, and by supporting them, and that can be through agriculture or through other things, but they don't have farmers or ranchers, and they reached out to me because they knew that I'd been working in a lot of these conflict regions, and they said, hey, would you be open to commissioning as a captain in the Army? And I said, absolutely, I'm supposed to. That's what I'm supposed to do next. So I didn't have a plan of like, what am I going to do when I come back to the U.S.? And that door opened, and it took a while. But one of the things that I learned, and I'll end with this, but life, very similar to how I switched from trying to control the outcomes on my farms, kill, move the tractor this way, or like we try so hard to control the outcomes of our lives, and we try, for us especially as providers, whether we're women or men, we want to control so much our careers. And I tell young people this like all the time, just you're going to have to follow some kind of flow. Otherwise there's a part of you that dies. And I've watched that with plants. I've watched it with livestock. The second that you let go, and then you're open to not just opportunities, but what pulls you, then all of a sudden the story, it all makes sense. The patterns make sense. The Swahili makes sense. The agriculture makes sense. The Marine Corps made sense, even though I failed at that. Like it felt
all
like
the failures, right?
All the failures, and the failure for like Pride Farms. I mean, it's still going, but when I came back, I felt like a failure in that, and that opened the door for what I do now with veterans, and what we do with Hinterland Institute, which is we're taking military lands and we're opening it up for regenerative agriculture across the United States. And so there's a bigger plan, and the Lord kind of opens these doors, but it's sometimes just accepting that, okay, I'll do it. And Jen's been really good, as long as I gave her a month, at least a month's notice. Actually, literally, I gave you a month's notice for Africa, and I gave you a month's notice for the Army.
Oh, yeah.
You're welcome. So, she's been good. She's been good. We've been really blessed. And I think we'll end there, but I think that, yeah.
So
I don't know if you guys
good.
have any questions. So we have any answers
Yes,
you'd like to, yeah, Susan.
because of your experience, and we share so much with the branch and the people there. Most of the interaction I have is with our lovely friends, is that there is still a lot of contention, a lot of dishonesty, a lot of starvation, a lot of poverty, and they are constantly trying to put together the money with their jobs at humanitarian dailies meets, wherever they're working, to send back to Africa. And there are still members in our branch that are having family members killed from the Rwandan guerrillas going into, and so I'm asking a question. I'm not giving a lecture.
Oh, no,
Tell us your feelings about that and how safe you think it is and what's going to happen.
It's a war over resources. So that war will continue. Conflict will continue in that area, and it's very complicated. There's over 18 rebel groups that where I was working out
In Congo, Rwanda, or where?
on the Congo border. So it goes
So Congo
into.
and Rwanda are like,
Right.
they almost merged.
Then there's
Right.
a rainforest that goes into Rwanda. So that's where a lot of operations.
And the
happen.
guerrillas have recently been going into Congo, and which has all those resources. But
Yeah.
one really quick thing, Rwandans here, and I had some at my table recently
Yeah.
for a Sunday dinner, were telling me to be really careful because they believe they're going to be killed over here. One of them is worried about being poisoned. So that they don't just end the conflict because they come here.
Just so you know, that is a
They
huge
continue.
compliment that they would tell you that.
That is.
That
Oh, well,
no. You
I've
might
been there
you might
15
no, it doesn't. No, that is like a major secret.
Yeah.
So like for anyone to like even tell you that, like you can go to any Rwandan, and here's the thing: most Rwandese will not ever tell you their deepest fears. And for them to say that to you, I just hope you know that is a huge compliment to you. What I would say is you can encourage, like while they are sending money, there are some resources there that can help their families. Like I don't know where they are, if they're right there on the border, but I think one of the things that can help them is the Pathways program that's out there now. Because I've noticed that when people join that there, they feel empowered to do more with their life.
Absolutely, but that is something that I became very aware of because the government started getting interested in what we were doing, and we would have military guys going in and around our farms, and I was like, I don't think it's that interesting. But then we had spies inside of our company to take us out, not taking out literally like the gun, but
To give information away.
it's a little bit different than doing business here. I say a
But
little
you
bit.
felt safe,
Oh
Now,
yeah.
which is what a lot
There,
of
we,
people
for,
don't
about,
feel.
for about 6 months being back here, we would turn off our phones with WhatsApp because we couldn't, even as expats, there's things you can't say, and they're tracking your WhatsApp. They're tracking.
Their fears are legitimate. Like
Oh,
so
for sure they
there
are.
was someone living here, Paul. Wasn't Paul living here?
There's hundreds of Rwandans that have lived overseas that have been kidnapped or
Right.
assassinated, and so yeah,
Right.
it's definitely a fear. But when you're there, I will say that we've never felt safe.
We felt very safe in Rwanda. In fact,
Really?
safer in Rwanda than here. And I had some anxiety moving back here because with freedom comes freedom.
This
Right.
happened
For
Wednesday
others
night.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the Tongan memorial.
Whereas like in a country like Rwanda,
Yeah, that's right.
you
yeah.
don't question. Like people are following the rules, and if they even breathe that they're thinking about not following the rules, they could disappear tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is very comforting for me, right? If you like, this person's deciding to be crazy, and he just happens to be crazy loud enough, then all of a sudden it's like, well,
Yeah.
we're going to take him away. And
Schools
better.
are safe. Like there's never gonna
There's
be
not a
a
school shooting
shooting.
there.
There's no.
like it's not a thing. Every time we walk into a restaurant or anywhere, they scan you for anything.
Yeah.
So it's very safe.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's safe depending on if you are okay with the government and if you don't have a background that is Hutu, and I mean, so there's things that
You don't have to stir the pot.
yeah you don't, it's not even stir the spot. Yeah.
I'm hearing this from the mother's point of view, and my daughter who's off doing all of these things and having babies in Africa, and I'm not going to marry this guy, I'm going to marry this guy after the date. So how is your family and your siblings taking your unusual life path?
You know what? My mom's on here. I can see her name on the little.
Careful.
Careful with what I say. No, actually, so I think I had mentioned in my past story, she was the one that came to me and said to me, if I go to the Lord, He will show me.
So it's her
Right?
fault.
Yeah, I know, it's her fault. No, but here's the thing. I met Juan, and when I met him, patterns, the little hints that I get, that missionary in Rwanda, the little hints. Here's another hint. Right before we went on our date, he was meeting me at the Skirball in Los Angeles for this little get-together. I'm in the basement with my coworker, her name's Jerry, and I was like, Jerry, when this guy comes, I don't know, do I shake his hand? Do I give him a high five? Do I just I don't know what to do. She's like, you'll know what to do. I'm like, all right, I'll know what to do. So he comes, and I just felt like he was my friend, and I hadn't seen him in forever. And I just ran up and gave him a hug. Later that night, Jerry finds out who he is, and she's like, did you know his grandpa was my 3rd grade teacher? Like I said, little hints at right place, right time, right person, right things.
I'm kind of curious, maybe not everybody feels like they're, I don't know if the word's that in tune or in that place in their life where they see those patterns. How do you nurture that capacity to see those things and acknowledge them when they happen, I suppose, as opposed to just say, well, it's coincidence, right? How do you nurture that? How does that work?
I can say that for myself, because I really, there was a point that I really struggled. I really struggled also with whether I had a testimony at all. And this is while we're out in Rwanda after being in a branch presidency. It was during COVID. I think a lot of people got shaken up and wondered, what is life all about? And am I going to make it? There's a lot of people, and going through the company issues as well, the farming, and I really, I was still trying to process my dad dying, because he died the year after we got married, which, it's been a while, but I don't think I'd ever really processed it. I think I hit a point where I'm like, I went right in, because I wanted to make sure that it was okay for me to just leave. That was a big thing for me, is that, I'd never given myself permission to let go. To even consider the idea of leaving, because I grew up in a very home where it's like, hey, this is your duty. Going on a mission was a no-brainer. That's what we're doing. Getting married at Temple, definitely, that's what we do. That's what whites do. And so it was kind of out of duty, and I think a lot of us do that. I think that part of our spiritual growth as adults, and when you're talking to an adult, they kind of hit that point where yeah, I don't have to do this. I can watch rated R's whenever I want, or I can do this whenever I want. And some of them go and have just a great time, And I think that when you start to do things because you're because you've let go of the duty side, and not just the duty. In my case, there was a bit of shame and guilt, and I think a lot of parents don't realize that they're doing this, but leading by shame and guilt, where, do you really want this? If this is, you disappoint your family. What about your pioneer heritage? It's the pioneers are watching me. I better not do this. They're just shame. And I think that for me, and that seems silly, but for me, letting that go was ripping my leg off. It was just the most painful thing. And all of a sudden there was nothing left. There was nothing left of me. At least that's what I thought, but who I was. And you take that and also like I had an identity crisis where I'm like, am I a farmer? When I came back to Utah, I was like, who am I? I'm like, yeah, I'm a dad, but I'm a dad that's not supporting my family. What am I going to do? And I think that we struggle sometimes as men, especially like if we don't have our identity, like if you don't have your job, what are you? And I think all of those things, being able to let those go and then just to listen. I hit a point where I just got this feeling that I could write. If that's all I could do, then I could do that. And I started writing every morning religiously, and I've been doing that. And the first time I started writing, it was like a patriarchal blessing was being given to me. And this is very personal. I'm sharing this, but it was the same as when my dad used to give me blessings. And there's part of me that truly believes that and there's been many times that I have been writing it, and I felt like it's the same as when I was getting those blessings. It's the same direction. And I've talked to people from all sorts of religions that have very similar experiences of this is the intuition, this is the spirit guiding me. And it's so fun for me to go and work with, especially in the regenerative space, because I work with a lot of the leaders in regenerative agriculture, and that's what they feel. They're like, science has led us to this point in agriculture. It's okay for us to be, you talked about being curious, to be like, we don't need to deny science, but we can say, we don't know everything that's in the soil. We don't know if music can actually make a plant grow. That seems silly, but they're doing research and they're showing these things. And these guys are here, they're kind of the hippies of the industry, but they're saying like, look, let's just be okay not knowing and be okay letting go and watch what happens. And all of a sudden you start to see plants that are given a certain environment, like when all of a sudden you keep the soil covered, there's more nutrients available in the soil. Naturally, we don't have to add it. It's like God actually knew what he was doing. Heaven forbid, we don't have to control it. And I think that sometimes in our lives, like maybe God knew what he was doing when he let me fail, or when my dad was sick at that time. Anyway, so I think that short story long, I'd say that it's letting go of things that are kind of gripping at you, and they're really telling your story the way that you think you need to have it told. And in my case, the shame and guilt that I've had from parenting and from a lot of family members, and I don't think it's that they're bad. I just think that it's us trying to control. When we want our kids to listen to us, guilt and shame are a good way to do it. Fear's a really good way to do it. A belt's a good way to do it. So like those are things that we sometimes, tools that we'll use because we just either we were taught that way or we haven't found something else. But our kids are going to have to process it, and they either do it. They'll probably do it later in life, and that processing might be like, well, I'm definitely not going to be in the church. And that's a big reason why I told Jen, I'm like, I want my kids to love learning, and homeschool Jen makes it like she's like Mary Poppins. She makes it fun. I love being there. Not every time. Not every.
Darcy.
She's Darcy with me, not with the kid. She's Darcy with me. But then church. Like, how do we make that fun? Because the youth will not stay. And it doesn't mean that like everything has to be fun, but how do we make it an adventure? Like, because I think that's the best part of the gospel, of not just the gospel, but this spiritual journey that we're on, is that there's times that it feels like, hey, it's like the Hobbit. We're going on an adventure there and back again, and it's going to be scary, but at least you have some guidance. And I think that's really what we should be searching for, is guidance, not just, are you doing these things, are you following these steps? And that's just my opinion.
Mine's a quick, short answer. I think if you find peace.
Yeah.
If you find peace, then move forward. And if it seems scary and you still find peace, move forward. And you don't have to it has to not be like a grand thing. It could just be like a little step. And if that little step works out, then it does.
Thank you. You guys are awesome.
again, Judy, for hosting. So you gave a couple of possible hymns. What about Little Light of Mine? I kind of like that because it's new in the handbook.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has some roots with African.
Yeah.
You have your guitar?
Huh?
You have your guitar?
There's one right
There's a cello.
there's one in the closet.
Oh, there's an electric guitar.
You're welcome to play.
Yeah, now.
Well, you
Our
can play it, right?
granddaughter just took the guitar and she's on her way to Spain.
Oh, fun.
Well, come on, bring it back.
Exciting. Oh. So, want to look up the words to This Little Light of Mine? Or we just either Google or go to the hymn book.
In the hymn book, is it in the key of C?
What do you want it to be in, Suzanne?
I don't, but
We
it doesn't
probably
matter.
could sing it in any
I would
way.
say let's do Upgrade Thou Art, because that African style, but this hill light.
Let's do something that you know.
This Little Light of Mine, you know, well, she can play that.
Well, no, I just have a key, so I but I don't know how does it work.
That's
Well, we can do it. No, so if we can get it started.
This is a good key.
That's it.
Well, that's too low.
Not shine.
Look, we got
Too low, right?
No,
Yeah.
it's
It's
good.
This light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I can't remember it.
Yay!
That is not very good.
Do it.
to
We're all happy.
be able to pull that out without music is pretty
No,
impressive.
no, I can't remember it. I wanted to do
Okay.
1 and 10 know how we do African style in our branch.
Oh yes.
Come on, this is how great thou art. That was good.
Father, we're grateful tonight to be here, to participate in this discussion, to hear of others' experiences with the Spirit and being guided by the Spirit. We're grateful for this little family being protected and cared for and in thy arms and their adventures. Bless them as they continue with their journeys. Bless us in our faith and in our conviction about thee and thy Son and heavenly parents and things that teach us about our importance in this universe. And we pray for the refreshments and we're grateful for them in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I was going to say even for the Hershey Kisses.
Help this junk food become healthy.
Yeah, I found you guys on Instagram. Are you actually active on Instagram?
Yeah.
I would like to reach out.
So what's your name?
I'm Martina.
Hi, Martina.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for coming.
If let me know if something changes. Yeah.
Does he need to hear that I'm the captain and like,